On today's video, we'll be showing you how to install a RaceChip on the Jeep 2.0 turbo motor. Before installing the RaceChip, please wait until your engine is cool enough to work on. Put your parking brake or emergency brake on. If your vehicle is equipped with an alarm system, please disable it. Pop the hood, roll up the windows, close the doors, and press the lock button on your key fob and move that key fob 30 feet away. You're going to wait about 10 minutes after for all the electricity to clear from underneath the hood. First step is to remove the plastic engine cover. There'll be two 10mm bolts right here in the front of the motor. After the two bolts are removed, there's going to be two rubber grommets in the back of the engine cover. Simply pull up gently and it'll unsnap. Next step in the installation process is to remove the side engine cover as well. Again, these will be the same 10mm bolt size. So with the side engine heat shield, there's going to be two rubber grommets on the bottom. Again, we're just going to slightly lift up to remove. The first connection we're going to attach is the A connection to the manifold pressure sensor, the MAP. It's going to be located on the passenger side down below right here. So to remove the sensor plug, I'm going to use a small flathead screwdriver to pull back on the white locking tab. I'm going to press down and push backwards. You'll take the female end of the RaceChip supplied wiring harness, put it onto the male end of the Oem sensor. Make sure you lock it down with a locking tab. It's really important with this sensor that the locking tab is on the opposite side of the mounting tab on the RaceChip harness. If this is reversed, you can get a check engine light as the signal data will be backwards. With the male end of the RaceChip harness, we're going to go directly back into the sensor itself. Push it on until you hear the first lock, and then press the gray locking tab. Make sure the sensor's all the way on there with a nice little wiggle. Next step in the installation is to install the B connection to the boost pressure sensor. This one's going to be same thing on the passenger side, just after the turbocharger, right behind the edge of the heat shield. So for this one, I'm just going to gently move the heat shield out of the way. Same small flathead screwdriver to remove the locking tab. Again, we're just gently pulling back until it removes the lock. I'm going to press down and pull back on the Oem sensor plug. To remove the Oem sensor plug, we're going to push down on the locking tab and pull back. Then we'll take the female end of the RaceChip wiring harness, push it on until you hear the first click, and press the locking tab until you hear the second click. Then we'll put the male end of the RaceChip wiring harness into the Oem sensor itself. Push on until you hear the first lock, then press the gray locking tab until it's locked on. For the 2.0 motor, we actually like to route the wiring harness behind the side heat shield before we install the RaceChip. So in this case, you can see we fish underneath here and around and out the front. And we want to make sure that we do have room for the two bolts to go back in. Again, before we install the RaceChip. Before we mount and install the RaceChip, we'll first place the mounting tabs onto the four corners of the RaceChip itself. The really nice thing about these mounting tabs is they allow for you to mount the RaceChip horizontally or vertically with zip ties. If you ever need to remove the RaceChip for any reason, you can press the locking tabs on the four corners to leave the zip ties in place and just remove the RaceChip. To install the RaceChip, we're first going to remove the deactivation plug. You'll want to hang on to this device. If you ever need to revert the car back to stock, you'll actually use this in place of the RaceChip. So maybe throw that in your glove box or your center console. So after the deactivation plug is removed, we're going to take the RaceChip itself and plug it right into our FCI plug. It's really important the first time we install the RaceChip that if you have the GTS, you get no LED screen lit up, or if you have the RS or S, that there's no green LED lit up. We don't want any power going to the device the first time we install it. With the RaceChip plugged in, we're next going to mount it with these zip ties. We're going to use the two longer of the supplied zip ties in the installation kit. Now it's really important when you mount your RaceChip to keep it away from any hot or moving parts, as well as any place that moisture can get. So for this application, there's a really nice hollow spot behind the battery. You know, this is a good spot because there's not going to be any moisture getting towards the battery. We're going to take the zip ties and go right onto these two wires right here. Now it's important, since we are zipping onto the wires, that we don't do anything too tight. We don't want to pinch off any of the wires inside these OEM lines. Now we're going to zip tie the wiring harness as well. Again, just like the RaceChip, we want to keep it away from any hot or moving engine parts. And if you are going to zip tie onto the electrical lines like we are here, you don't want to do it too tight. With everything securely in place, we're going to trim the ends of the zip ties to give it a nice OEM look. Last but certainly not least is to mount the engine cover back in place. Make sure you get the two rubber grommets in the back, and then drop down the 10mm bolts and tighten everything in place. Start in the default setting of the RaceChip for the first time you test drive the car. If everything works great, you can then move the RaceChip to the next level up. Be aware that the car needs some time to adapt before releasing the full performance upgrade. Now, get out, drive, and enjoy your RaceChip.